You already know that junk food, sugary snacks, and ultra-processed foods aren't healthy options. Yet, you still reach for them, sometimes daily. Here's the news, though. It's not just a willpower issue. These foods are literally designed to hijack your brain's reward system and to bypass all of your biological stop mechanisms that would otherwise kick in. In this video, we'll talk about how that works, why it matters for your long-term health, and how it might even have a role in shaping the quality of life in your very final decade, whenever that might begin. All right, all the foods that we know are bad, but we keep reaching for. None of these will be a surprise, right? So it's sugar-sweetened beverages, things like soda, sweet tea, energy drinks. It's things like ultra-processed snacks. Potato chips are a pretty strong offender. Crackers, pastries, sugary snacks, packaged meals with really long ingredients lists, ones that have a lot of preservatives in them. And honestly, the ingredients list is this long, and you need like a PhD in chemistry to even read half the words. And then also processed meat, things like fast food, burgers, sausage, unfortunately bacon too. It's a cured meat. And the framing idea is here that while all those things are certainly edible and some of them delicious, they're at heart not really food, they're product. This isn't your mom or your spouse that's cooking you a healthy and delicious meal. These are companies that make money and whose goal is to make more money and keep making money. They produce them to be shelf-stable, they produce them to be addictive, and they produce them to be sort of hyper-rewarding to the reward system in our brain. These foods light up the reward pathways in your brain way more so than any other natural food would. Another reason is their sort of habit cueing. It comes through marketing and through other features where you pair food or you pair eating this particular item with your routine. Maybe while you're watching TV, maybe while you're playing on your computer, while you're stressed out. Maybe it's like a work snack or something. Another thing is there's no satiety signal. They kind of bypass sort of the fullness feeling that you would otherwise get from eating a lot of food. So refined sugar plus fat plus like crunchiness is sort of the ultimate trifecta for for neurological chaos on that front. And then also there's some, nostalgia and comfort associated with it. There's emotional safety triggers. There's childhood memory things. I used to love eating X in the past, and this brings me back there. These foods aren't just high in calories. They're engineered to override your brain's ability to regulate intake. And the two main abilities that are sort of overridden here are A, the dopamine hijack, B, the satiety bypass. So these foods, these very high calorie, sweet, fatty, crunchy, delicious foods, right? They really light up our reward centers in our brain. And there's a little bit of evolutionary history there too, right? Over the course of our history as a species, there was never a tremendously abundance of food or a giant food surplus. There just wasn't. All of us individually or as small groups were very, very eager and focused on finding food. And when we then finally found one that, was sweet or high in calories or fatty, our reward system would light up and would tell us man, find and eat more of that, because that's exactly what, we're in short supply of. So now that these foods, or at least foods that satisfy those kind of conditions, are virtually instantaneously available anywhere at any time, I think you can probably see the problems that that's causing. Our systems don't adapt as fast as food technology has recently, and the evolutionary pressure is towards finding and consuming these high-calorie, high-fat, high-sugar foods. There's just nothing we can do about it. Another pernicious effect that this causes is that these foods, or honestly all rewards really, create habit loops. And kind of the way that works is that, you see the food or you eat the food, you get an immediate dopamine spike, you get a reward memory, and you end up with stronger cravings for that food the next time. Just like with, say, gambling or social media, kind of the anticipation of the reward actually becomes its own source of pleasure. Just like maybe your mouth is watering for that really juicy burger, or you're just really eager for that scrumptious dessert. Over time, right, you start eating not just because your body needs fuel, but the actual food becomes its own reward. Your brain is actually chasing that reward feeling over and over again. The bottom line is it's not really just the calories. Certainly it's calories, and there's the evolutionary pressure towards that. The foods that we're talking about, the highly processed ones, the snack foods, the ones that just aren't good for us, are products that were literally built to feel rewarding to us before we even swallowed the first bite, if we have a pattern or habit of eating it. The second mechanism that is definitely worth talking about is the satiety bypass. Satiety is just a fancy word for things when you feel satiated or satisfied from having consumed, or in this case, eaten something. For an example, in what I'll call real foods, like maybe eggs or lean meats or lentils or whatever you want to pick, there's built-in feedback loops that your body is accustomed to and looking for. You have to chew them a little bit more slowly. You kind of feel the texture. It's not something you can really wolf down. And actually, your gut literally sends hormone signals to your brain that says, okay, enough. We're good now. We have enough. And so these ultra-processed foods, and especially sort of these well-designed sugary products that we're talking about in this episode, literally bypass this system. A lot of times they're really soft, they're super easy to chew, they're really fast to eat, they're like really low in fiber, probably next to no protein in them. Sometimes they're just so soft they just kind of melt in your mouth and there's almost no chewing even required. All of the mechanisms that, the hormonal feedback loops, all of those things are completely bypassed with these foods. Your brain just simply does not get the full signal, or any signal in that matter, to stop until you've already way overeaten, which is why with some of these foods, kind of regret sets in afterwards. Not only that we ate it at all, but that we ate so dang much of it, right? Just because it was really hard to put down. It's like your brain and your body are somehow disconnected. Like you've never really run out of hunger to eat chips, right? You just run out of chips before you run out of hunger. It's because of this satiety override. We can see it in everyday life. I'll admit my personal kryptonite is Diet Coke. And I think that Diet Coke, even though it's not sugar sweetened, it still has artificial sweeteners in it that I'm sure aren't really very good for you. There's no fiber, there is no satiety, there's, even though there's no calories, they're not really good for you. And honestly, I can drink 10 of them. I'll just keep reaching for them simply because the loop isn't about thirst. It's about having sweet, cold, bubbly. It's just the product. I think it's designed, and I have been caught and I have swallowed hook, line, and sinker. I just keep drinking them. If I have a 12-pack, then that's how many I'm going to drink. If I have 6, then I drink 6. This is over the course of the day. I am certainly also a victim of the same thing. It doesn't apply so much for foods for me, but that Diet Coke definitely has its hooks in me. And I think my point is you don't need a perfect diet every day, all the time. You just need fewer kind of silent ambushes that are just constantly lurking for you. And if you can get on that path, we're already ahead of the game. The core message is that we're not aiming for purity or perfection in diet. What we're looking for, or at least what this video discusses, is how to start and how to exit sort of the autopilot loop. The unconscious, constant exposure to these foods builds long-term risk for your health span, and the goal here is to disrupt that. For myself, my own advice is to make some of the worst foods just a little bit harder to access. So in my case, then with the Diet Coke example, if I have fewer Diet Cokes, well, guess what? I'll drink fewer Diet Cokes. Nutella is another food. I absolutely love Nutella. So I just plain don't buy it anymore, right? Because if I have it in the pantry, guess what? I'm going to eat it. What I'm trying to do is replace grab-and-go stuff or things that I reach for absolutely immediately with something else, something that gives a little bit of friction. And by friction, I mean the idea of adding just enough resistance to sort of break your habit or change your behavior a little bit. So for an example, instead of having, the double stuffed Oreos just right there ready to grab in the pantry, maybe have like fruit or nuts or non-sweet tea or some sort of like protein food ready and available for you to eat instead. And technically, you could still go buy the Oreos after you eat your nuts or protein or whatever, but you probably won't because you will feel satisfied from eating other snacks, just given all the feedback loops that we just learned about. Another thing that worked pretty well for me is that I kind of protected specific meals. I knew right off the bat I wasn't going to be able to eat everything, 100% perfectly all the time. So I started with protecting one meal, and for me that was breakfast. And then after a little bit of time, I added a second meal, which was my lunch meal. that was somewhat protected. So I would eat real food for breakfast, typically a lot. I would eat real food for lunch too, usually a little bit less than I had for breakfast. And then in sort of the late afternoon and evenings, I would just sort of kind of graze or maybe not even really eat anything. But I protected those core meals. Breakfast was like the main calorie intake for me. I'm not sure that works for everyone. That's what I did. And then lunch also, I would top up on things with fiber, things with protein, real food stuff. And then kind of all bets were off in the afternoon. That doesn't mean that I was deep into the donuts every afternoon and evening, but it means that maybe I was just doing some light grazing on some of the handier snack foods, like those friction items, fruits, nuts, protein bars, etc., that were just there ready to grab in the pantry instead of going for the really bad foods. My advice is, if you can make even just one meal every day, make one meal real food, that's an excellent start and sort of you're on the way of breaking out of this habit. So the goal isn't to not ever eat junk or foods that aren't ideal again. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop living in a system where junk food or junk-y food is the default. If you don't replace the loop that you're in, your brain will keep finding a way to restart the loop. Once it stops being automatic, you are already winning and well on your way.